What's up, guy? What is up, guy? Welcome back to what Josue has to say. If you're new here, I'm Josue, and this is what I have to say. Before we begin, please remember, like, subscribe, share, do all the things. This does help the podcast grow. And if you ain't growing, you're rotting. Today's episode is kind of like a part two of an episode that I filmed around a year and a half ago.
Nearly 2 years.
Nearly 2 years?
That's when I was last year in Miami.
Time flies, baby.
Yeah.
So clearly we got a returning guest showing off his handsome mug this time, SolBrah, and revealing for the first time, if you're watching, Helios. Welcome on the pod, guys.
What's up, man? It was about time.
It was about time.
Thanks for having us.
And I'm honored to have your face reveal happen on my podcast.
As am I. As am I, sir.
Beautiful.
Fellow Miami native.
So for the folks that don't know who these brilliant men are, they are staples in the online community that promote health, masculinity, a little esotericism, the works. But I'll let you guys have the floor and kind of introduce yourselves and do that for.
Sure. Well, my name is SolBrah, and my highest mission that I try to exhibit each day is to make the world healthier, happier through education about how the world works, health in general, a lot of lifting, fitness, exercise in there as well, and just trying to share to the world what has helped me live a better life. That's what I'm about.
Love it.
Nice. Hard to follow that, but
Yeah.
I'm Helios. Definitely similar. I've always been, invigorated by health and fitness overall. And just kind of finding ways to really tap into your potential. And, that comes with the esotericism, that comes with the spirituality and just being fit, jacked, tan. It's all encompassing. So
Getting tan is one of the most spiritual things you can do.
it is.
I will say.
How so? When so many people think the sun is out to get them.
Yeah, that's what you got to get into your head. Stop wearing sunscreen. You need to get more sunlight, because I would argue it is the most important, most impactful thing for your health before any supplement, any other thing you can dial in, getting more sunlight on as much of the body as possible. It's the quantum light information that's going to tell your body how to operate. You're going to be more muscular, less body fat. You're going to feel better in every single way. Sleep is better. And it's really a response to the mainstream narrative, which is sunscreen, sunglasses, cap inside, never ever go outside for too long and be scared of the sun. It's like promoting this fear of the most natural thing that exists in our world. And that's one thing that I am a massive proponent of across the board.
Yeah. And it was really that philosophy that kind of drew a line in the sand. Like in my life, I was always healthy, I was always going to the gym. But there was a moment where not only is the sun physically going to benefit your health in every possible way, but when you start to realize that they're demonizing the sun, while the sun is this beautiful life source forever.
It's literally the life source.
Yeah, exactly.
Quite literally.
It literally forces you to kind of question other paradigms that might be like easily crumbled just by a different shift of your mindset and the way that you view the world. So
what happens to a plant when it doesn't get enough sun? It withers and it dies.
It's out, yeah.
And we photosynthesize as well. We generate energy when we receive sunlight. And the same thing occurs with us. While we don't, droop our leaves or anything like a plant would, you see someone, if they're sickly pale and white and they just lack this life force energy.
Yeah, you can tell.
They're not getting this supercharging of sunlight, which is, charging their human battery. Like, we're electrical beings. And the sun is one of the things that just sets everything right.
It's crazy how many people are walking around just vitamin D deficient. I remember during the COVID times, I don't know if I'll get flagged for saying COVID anymore.
I think we're past that.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Everyone that got seriously ill was vitamin D deficient. And then they were forcing everybody to stay indoors on top of that. It's like, that's counterproductive as fuck,
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Fundamentally, our health institutions don't understand what is healthy. And you don't have to go far back in the past to see that hospitals would have what they called heliotherapy.
Yeah, those beds on the roof or shit like that,
Beds
right?
on the roof, or they would just wheel the beds out daily to get some sun, because it's the most healing thing you could possibly have. If you go into a hospital, even as a healthy person, you're going to get sicker because you're constantly under fluorescent lights. you don't have the sun and the sunset to dictate your sleep patterns, and you're not receiving sunlight. So you're lacking in blood flow, the energy required to shift all the fluids around your body, as well as vitamin D, other hormones downstream of that. Like it's so central to the essentiality of life.
It's so funny because, I mean, since the beginning of time, the sun has been encouraged, right? So I'm noticing how it's more of a Western cultural thing to avoid the sun, because countries that are still very like speaking for Cuban parents, when I would get sick as a kid, sal pa fuera, coge el sol, go outside and get sun. That was the thing, right? And then they were still very rooted to our Cuban roots on the island, and many other countries still operate with this old, mentality, which is the right mentality. It's like the sun heals, go outside and get some fucking sun. And in the US specifically, and maybe some parts of Europe, it's like
Western countries.
Right. It's avoid the sun.
And I think the sun is just like it's like a house of cards. Like there's so many ancient ways of healing the body that for some reason no one talks about anymore. And curious enough, when heliotherapy stopped being prominent, when the antibiotic companies got federal grants to start spreading that as their primary form of like healing sickness. So I mean, obviously it's all bought and paid for. It's just, there's so many ways to heal the body that we need to kind of tap back into.
Yeah, dude, that's where the conspiracy part of it kind of ties into everything's fucking money, man, which, that's part of the Western civilization as well. Guys, so I found you both through the red pill space, right? And that was actually the name of our first podcast. I think it was red pilling.
Health red pills or something like that.
Something like that, yeah, red pilling or some shit like that. But I think the red pill space has taken a big U-turn from what it started off as. And I've been very vocal about this, and you guys can be as vocal as you guys want to be about it. Whereas I think where it started was as a initiative and a movement for men to reclaim their masculinity, where it had been abandoned through feminism and toxic masculinity and all that bullshit. And you've been a pioneer in this, but I don't see you participating in what the current red pill culture has morphed into, which is a lot of misogyny and just a lot of guys just, speaking out of turn with a lot of, you can tell there's a lot of hate or a lot of hurt, in their voices. What's your take, you guys, that since we're still part of the space, but not really on that side of things, what's your take on that turn?
Yeah, so the natural boomerang of when the feminist movement and all that stuff came to prominence, and, the wage gap arguments, and women are attacked in various ways in our society, which can be true in isolation, but it doesn't mean that you should demonize masculinity. Right. And now, because that was rooted in some people hating men in general, it's now swung back to, pendulum swings. And we have a bunch of people who are misled. Maybe they've had bad experiences in the past with women, and so they look for answers. And, there are some legitimate lessons in the ideology of the red pill in general. But as you said, it's now morphed into this thing where it's just hating women. And the guys that are the most vocal about that, the most intense about no, women can be trusted, all of that kind of stuff, that's almost, if you're following someone that has that as something that they say day in, day out, they are just telling on their experience of life with women, which is
very transparent.
They don't have women that they can trust, and they don't have healthy relationships with women. And, I love women. It's the best thing, most beautiful thing in the world to have a loving relationship with that duality of masculinity and femininity. And unfortunately, there are voices that have been promoted and raised and put on the main stage, streamers and things like that, which is to the youth, some would argue somewhat intentionally pushed to the youth, so that there is further dissonance between men and women. Psyop against each other.
That's crazy.
At a macro level, if you look at it, the more that they can get the man and the female hating each other for things that are either isolated personality issues, which should be fixed and worked at, versus actually behind the scenes, like why is society, it's harder for a man to keep a job? It's because they added all these jobs and immigration and all the rest of it so that the wage is depressed. And now one man can't support a family as easily as in the past. Yep. But then they'll blame the women for that instead of these larger things at play. So if they can pit man and female against each other, then ultimately it breaks up the family unit. And if there's no family unit, single parent homes is one of the largest predictors for social dysfunction in the individual. And then that leads to higher crime rates and all the rest of it. And
it's the same goal as the whole liberal shit. They just brought it. They're like, oh, this isn't working. They're catching on. Let's.
Yeah. I think at base level, like the red pill, blue pill dynamic is what it should have stayed. You know, like the red pill is, you know, you're seeking the truth, the actual reality of life and the way things work. And I think like through social media, that message kind of got morphed into this whole weird space that it's in now.
And it's kind of funny because a lot of these bros, you know, they've practiced the whole I'm an alpha, I'm a masculine, this and that. Like a true alpha and masculine guy knows that the female-male dynamic is symbiotic and it supplements one another. And one isn't greater than the other. One excels where the other lacks and vice versa. Yeah. And the role of the masculine is to lead and protect. So how are you out here, you know, shitting on these women? And number two, why are you as a grown-ass man arguing with a stranger that's a woman online? That's bitch shit. You know what I mean? Like, why are you arguing with a woman, period? And it's not even your girl. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's the most anti-masculine thing you can do.
People need an identity to attach to. And if you're this red pill Twitter guy, that's who you are now. It's easy to kind of spout everything you hear instead of like introspectively looking at the things you're saying, the things you're believing, and how that's affecting everything you're getting in life.
It's wild,
women
dude.
And everything, you know?
There's a lot of, in general, if that's what you believe, there's nothing that arguing about it online and attacking people that, of course, there is a cultural issue where we have women that are doing things like OnlyFans more often, and it seems to be more common. That's not good for them. It's not good for other people. Porn in general, like our society is objectively shifting towards more people getting into that world. So if you believe that, and that's something bad and maybe objectively should be socially shunned in some form, the fix to that isn't going to be arguing on podcasts like all the time or just attacking people, like you're just putting out this negative energy. The fix for that is within your own life. Okay, how am I possibly contributing to the culture by having casual sex or, you know, being negative towards these women in my life and not taking responsibility as a man and externally blaming, oh, women are doing this to me, but it's actually something that you can improve and control in your own life. Like any of these issues that we can look externally and say, that's bad in that person. But then in yourself, you may be doing some things and you're blind to it and you're projecting and you're not like, no one's 100% perfect. Until you are 100% perfect, then it does no good to, you know, look at him. He's doing it wrong. Well, look in the mirror, bro. Like we're all part of the same thing.
Yeah. And the more you project and hate women, in a way, you're creating more OnlyFans models, right? Like you just contribute to the problem.
That's a good take. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild, man. What do you guys think that as, you know, we all have platforms as people with platforms. Can we kind of do to mitigate this, to get people to snap back into it and be like, oh my God, wait, I got sucked into that. How did I get, you know, because it happens, you know, you snowball and then you just realize it's happened to me, it happens to everybody.
Yeah. It's almost maybe somewhat of a rite of passage. But I would always look at anything that, okay, what is bringing better results into my life? What is bringing more harmonious, healthy, feeling good relationships? And it's not really going to be the perspective that every woman's going to leave you if you ever show a hint of weakness or whatever. And of course, there are some nuggets from the red pill
100%.
which help you attract, lead, and whatever else with women. But it's got to be, does it improve your life, or are you just spending more time arguing online? And are you distrustful of an entire gender when there are millions of women who are great and continue to be great and not exhibit these things. But I also, the reverse of it that a lot of people don't speak about is women are often the response to what men allow. And if men are allowing in increasingly higher amounts of watching porn, being at home, not doing masculine things, not chasing after their goals.
Soft men,
Soft men, like, not that I'm pushing myself as a proponent of like, I'm the best man or whatever, but like objectively, you see guys that are just sipping on soy lattes, watching porn, playing video games. Like, it's pathetic.
It is, yeah.
And as a girl, I'm looking at, like, if I was a girl looking at these guys, it's like, I wouldn't want to be led by them. I wouldn't want to even be 10 feet away from them. Yeah. And so if most guys would fix their problems with women that they think there are problems by
embodying that. Yeah.
Exactly. Like leading, being, successful, or at least you don't have to be at a certain point, but you have to be moving towards that. And you can't be externally blaming anything, and you can't be watching porn at home and never going outside, never physically training. And then you're like, oh, I want this 10 out of 10 virgin to be my wife. Otherwise all women suck. Like, it's just entirely a fake reality.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. And I think we were talking about this recently, but just, how to mitigate it. I feel like whether or not you have a platform or not, you need to kind of zoom out and realize, like, let's say there was no internet, no phones, no nothing, and you were living in a tribe. You like 100% have an impact around the people that you interface with. Mm-hmm. So if you are walking around with this belief, all this red pill shit is just completely flowing through your consciousness, you're going to project that onto the people around you. But if you realize that you have the power to be this node that's going to actually affect and maybe help somebody that, you don't really align with and change their views, you be that role model for yourself, for your family, your siblings. You don't need like a following to just make a difference.
That's true. Yeah. Lead by example.
Yeah, exactly.
What happens is, and this goes for any beliefs that you hold about yourself in your life. If you think that it's valid and true that no woman is going to be loyal and build with you and everything else because of these concepts like hypergamy or whatever, then you will project that energy out and you will find yourself only attracting women that fulfill that expectation that you have of the world, because what the thinker thinks, the prover proves. Mm-hmm. And so that's a phrase that what we believe is going to connect to our subconscious, and then the subconscious connects with God and the larger energy field as a whole, and puts out connections that you're on the same level with. And so you only do run into these women who do exhibit those qualities. Because if you don't believe it's even possible, your eyes aren't even going to be open to that. And that goes for whether you believe that it's possible to make money in a certain field or heal yourself of some disease. Like, it's all comes down to what we think. So why would you want to, like, if you want a healthy marriage and relationship, that can't exist if the fundamental belief, like, that has to come first, the belief shift. And then you will eventually come into situations where that is true, the better option.
Not even just like on the manifestation, what your beliefs attract, your reality type of thing, but your belief system is kind of what your brain starts to pick up on to identify and kind of validate itself. Mm-hmm. So if you have those negative beliefs about women, you may meet, a girl that's pretty decent, but guess what? That belief system's already here. So you're just going to pick up and start to identify those, to validate those background belief systems that you have. It's kind of like when you get a car and then you never saw that car on the road before, but then now you see that car you have everywhere. But you weren't really looking for it before, right? But now you see it in every corner. It was always around you, but now you're just picking it up because of the fact that,
The scientific explanation or model of that, I think, is called the reticular activation system, RAS. And that's, I believe it's the manifestation side of things, where it's
it could be both, for sure.
Yeah, but your brain is looking for things that validate the beliefs that you hold. So if you want to change the things that you interact with and come across, you have to change the beliefs first.
I like what you said about that. The only reason women, behave that way is because of men, because it is true. When a woman is, acts all strong and on survival mode and has masculine traits, it's because she doesn't have a masculine to kind of, to give that for her. So she assumes it herself.
Yeah.
A lot of these like hard women get flack, but it's like, it's because of you. It's because you're not doing your part. So she has to assume the masculine, like, I'm going to be the go-getter. I'm going to be the this and that. That's something that kind of, falls through the cracks.
Yeah. And if you think about it, like if you are, as a man, if you're believing that, then you kind of don't have the space to be able to change that view at all, because it's all encompassing. Right.
Absolutely.
I think it's a big part of it is the health side of things.
Mm-hmm.
When your hormones are out of whack,
That's a whole other thing.
The various toxins and chemicals and plastics and what's in our food and the lack of nutrients and things, then maybe you have low testosterone as a guy. You have estrogen that's completely off the wall as a guy, and as a girl, that's going to mean more emotional instability. So you can't be that grounded masculine force. No wonder that no one's really getting along, because you put a bunch of rats together and you blast them with blue light, you give them trash grain-based food and pump them full of chemicals, they're going to go crazy. They're not going to get along with each other. So we're seeing this expound as a social phenomena when really a lot of it, a majority of it, I would say, is people are just unhealthy. Their hormones are out of whack. They're acting in a way that they wouldn't have if their vitality was on point and their hormones are balanced, and they feel, okay, I actually am centered and stoic to some degree, and I feel like I can lead and be powerful because my testosterone is high. Mm-hmm. That's not happening because so many people are living unhealthy lives, and otherwise the health advice of our health institutions is wrong. Again, it links back to what, as a government that wants to control and extract value from a population, would you rather a bunch of soy boys jerking off at home dependent on the government payout, or a bunch of high-test men who are outside doing things independent, making deals and businesses between each other and producing things? Like, what of those groups is going to be easier to control?
That's a no-brainer.
Yeah, and that soy boy fits perfectly into the victim model of thinking.
Yeah.
Hate all women. It's not my fault. I'm here just doing my thing as a man. It's obviously the woman's fault. Anything that will rid you of blame, like people tend, if they have suboptimal health, their intuition is like clouded. Mm-hmm. They're going to rely on all these external messages just because it validates their inaction and their failure to kind of show up for themselves.
Sorry. No, I've been saying for a minute, every fucking single liberal is hormonally imbalanced. Like, I'm convinced.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care if it's a blanket statement, but I'm completely convinced they're all hormonally
imbalanced. Is there a tan liberal? I don't think I've
never seen a tan.
I've never seen a tan liberal.
Unless it's like by nature, like it's by their genes, but no. No, man.
Yeah, you can judge someone's philosophy based on how they look within like seconds.
100%.
Bro.
It's very rare that you will find someone that looks healthy, is muscular, girl or male. It's like, oh yeah, I can see what they probably would believe. Do you look like a soy boy? Do you have dyed hair? Are you fat? Are you
true.
vaping?
It's fucking true, dude.
Yeah, let me look at your internet history.
Yeah.
What do we got there?
Yeah,
Pornhub.
Exactly, yeah.
Guys, so I wanted to pivot towards the face reveal. And then from there, we'll triage to another, branch off to another topic. What was the take? Because I'm sure, our followers are curious. What was the initial goal of the anonymity? Yeah. And what was the decision as, hey, is this hindering me? Why change it up?
Yeah, well, initially when I started to put out content, it was one, just wanting it to be more about the ideas and the knowledge, and it's nothing to do with me. Like, I am showcasing the validation of my ideas through my physique, but it doesn't necessarily need to be about me, the person.
Gotcha.
And that was how I framed it to begin with. And from the feedback that I got from people, it wasn't even particularly conscious when I started it. There was also this thing about anonymity. You can say more of what you want. And like, a lot of people have a bit of fear behind not saying what they actually want, because
it was like shit posting in the beginning for you, right? Just like kind of like very, very early on.
Yeah. It's just like getting it all out there, and it allowed me to say what I wanted and all the rest of it. And then it kind of morphed into, SolBrah, I'm glad that you blow your face, because I can see myself more in that. Because when we extrapolate it and we look at someone else doing something incredible, not that what I was doing is incredible, but in general, like achieving great things, you think, oh, only that person could have done that. I could never do that. And for some reason, when you take the face out of it, people told me that the message came through clearer because it wasn't about me showing off my egoic things that I was doing. It's like, yeah, I'm sharing this and what I'm doing because I think it's valid, but I wasn't trying to do it. I was doing it just to purely communicate everything. And then that continued for a few years as I developed things and got bigger and started to do in-person events and things. It just got to the point where recently I was like, you know what, it feels right to just, get rid of the mask. And I freed up a lot of hours of editing, of blurring with all video.
I'm kind of excited for that.
Yeah, it's really helped. It's like I kind of extracted all the value out of the face blur era. And now I can do things like this and communicate better because a lot of communication is just from the face and the expression and the energy that comes through. And if I'm like this, there is somewhat of a block there. And it just felt right. And it felt like the time to do it.
I think it'll give you more connections to your followers too, more personable.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, man, I resonated with that from the beginning. I was definitely wanted to kind of be that model of what I believed in as well. And obviously you paved the way and I kind of saw that. I thought it was really cool. And for me, posting was always, when I was more scrolling instead of creating, it was very, just the relationship was different. So I was more consistent with posting in the beginning or early on because my face wasn't in it. It was like a game almost. It was like my alter ego. It was fun. It was cool.
That's a good.
Yeah. But now it's like, yeah, man, it's to do reels, the same thing, like authenticity videos. You want to be able to kind of transmute that energy more authentically. Like obviously the words have power, but if it's straight up me speaking, it's more powerful.
It's this whole thing with acting, right? Actors can go into a role, into a character and just become totally immersed in that and unhinged in a lot of ways that the person of the actor wouldn't feel comfortable doing. But because they're this other thing, John Smith, that they have a script for, they can just completely lose themselves in that. And I definitely felt that because it was separate to me, the person at the time. Now I would feel like, yeah, it's pretty much 100% congruent with just who I am and what I'm sharing. But there was a time where I wasn't as comfortable doing that stuff and talking about the things that other people may judge me for when you're first starting. But because it had the anonymity, it was this character. It's like me, the person, but then
the alter ego.
Yeah,
the like alter a superhero, ego. Clark Kent, and
sun my balls and do everything else that like eating raw liver, which was like, I as the person I was doing that, I wouldn't make anything inauthentic, but it definitely allows a level of acting and performance, and intrigue to it all, which is really fun, and that's another part of it.
And now it can still be that way. It's just now it's just a face there.
Yeah, exactly. Be the same me, just eye contact.
I think it'll bring more value for sure. I think people feel way more connected. And no, you're absolutely right. Even like, I mean, I don't blur my face, but it's different when I like even post a story for Instagram. I just become more dynamic, like character like for the and then turn it off and it's just obviously more a normal fucking person. Crazy and shit. So you posted the reveal on January 20th, which was the Pluto and Aquarius thing. And that's the next thing that I wanted to talk about.
Must have been a coincidence.
Must have been a coincidence. Ain't nothing a coincidence. We know that here. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, your thoughts on astrology. I don't know how into it you were last time.
I didn't know shit back then.
No.
I still don't know shit really, but that day was, honestly, it was more of a suggestion from a friend of mine, Pat Moyes, who one of the most incredible guys I've ever met, and his knowledge of the arcane and the esoteric is unparalleled with anyone that I've met so far. And I just texted him. I was like, hey, do you have any thoughts on when to do this thing? And he said, yeah, well, this date is the apex of the Pluto and Aquarius conjunction.
Pluto moves into Aquarius.
Pluto was coming to Aquarius. So it was kind of like the highest point of that transition, which means that there are several energies that are present that would magnify what I was doing. Like Pluto coming in Aquarius is about revealing things, new technologies being revealed, lies being dismantled,
Correct. Yeah.
all those kinds of things. So the reveal of a face kind of plays into that. And it worked out. Like, I would never plan something to be exactly on a day if it didn't work out with just what I was doing. But it did work out. And when I'm kind of like, okay, I have something ready and I've got this week time frame, like, what is the moon doing? Like, what kind of full moon is it? There are these energies present in everything that we're all a part of, whether you realize it or not. And astrology in general is a science and a study where ancient kings would have their most trusted and valued advisors to look at the stars and read the stars and say, okay, what is Jupiter saying for me for this coming war? And they would plan things around that because of the energies that are present. And so it just made the most sense for me to do that on that day. And I think energetically, like it hit better than it would have maybe otherwise. And another thing is numerology and the days that our friend Drew Tang, he's being in numerology. I was about to
bring him up, yeah.
I always ask him, like, hey man, I think you're doing this, like what day would this be? And a basic level one is money. 8 is the number of wealth, and money 8 and 28. So if you're gonna launch a product, then like 8 and 28. And it's never a replacement for creating something awesome and putting your heart and soul into it. But if there are these energies, which we feel consciously
favorable times, more favorable
times.
Yeah, it's a bonus.
You don't want to plan your wedding on particular days because it's going to be less, energetic, energized, romantic, whatever. But then there are days which are better for having sex, for launching relationships, things like that. Like, it's all part of this energetic flow that everything is energy. And for whatever reason, the dates, the months, the stars, the planets, they all relate to how we live our lives and how people feel in general. So astrology on the whole gets a bad rap because people will get their star sign from the newspaper. Yeah, they don't really have newspapers any day, but it's like, that's one part of it. That's your sun sign, I believe, right? Yep. So if you're a Taurus, then that's your sun sign. But there's like all the other planets, all the other stars, all the other houses, and where they are at the point of your birth, like all of that creates this huge picture where you have a birth chart of everything, and it can give you true, meaningful insights into what you should pursue in life. What are the lessons you're here to learn? Are you a leader? Are you more of a behind-the-scenes person? How do you resolve conflicts? What kind of partner should you have? What should you look for in life, and what environment you should be around? Like, all of this, if you're actually educated in it, and there are lots of books that it takes study, right? Like, it's not going to happen overnight. Yeah. But for me, having seen the results and seeing the correlations and feeling the energy and looking at people and looking at their chart and being like, oh, wow, that actually really explains you. It's like, you'd be a fool to ignore that just because you think astrology is real. You're one of these astrology girls. Like, it's such a limited, like, I work on evidence that I see in my life, and 100%. Does it match up with my theories, and I test things. And if that's true, or it appears to be true at the current point in my life based on the model of my thinking, then I'm going to input that into my reality. I'm not going to just ignore it because some Joe Schmo thinks it's stupid. Like, as I said, kings of the past used to dictate their rulings based on this. The greatest financial advisors right now, the Rothschilds, all those big families, they do things and they trade according to these days and numbers and astrological movements and things. So it's like, for an example would be my personal chart and this happens across years as well, right? It's not just your birth date and that picture, but based on me, if Mars is coming through a particular house of mine for the next 2 or 3 months, that would be a period of my life where I naturally have an abundance of physical energy and aggression and things like that, because Mars is the ruler of that kind of thing. So if I was trying to have some sort of plan for my life,
that would be the time.
Well, that would be a time for the aggressive bodybuilding, fitness, and just have like a little season of that, and you'll feel the natural flow and like kind of push it.
More favorable, like we said.
Exactly.
I'm also a Taurus, by the way. What's interesting though about these types of things is, like, if you zoom out, just like we were talking about the sun, how they want to kind of make this innately powerful thing seem woo-woo, right? Or like or dangerous. It's the same thing like with these ancient knowings. There's obviously people in power that are leveraging this energy so that they get what they want. But at the base level, they want us to think the world is physical. You go to work, you go back home. God isn't real. You know, all these types of beliefs that just dim down the energy of the populace. If you were to leverage that energy and kind of really tap into it, that would be they might have some power that maybe they don't want you to have.
They don't want the plebs knowing stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of obvious with all of these things.
It's not beneficial towards them, right? Why would you want, if you want to remain on top, then you know, in their mentality, you have to keep everyone else down. You know, have to keep them. It's a tool that empowers. And when I got into it, I thought it was bullshit too, because the stuff you're exposed to is like the Cosmopolitan magazine and all that bullshit. And then you see the type of people that,
that's by design.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And then I noticed that the type of people that, you know, resonate with that shit and blame everything on astrology, or like the fucking people that don't take accountability, you know, just it's woo woo, all this shit. Yeah. But then I started noticing it's all it is the observation of patterns.
Yes.
It's cyclical.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, and when people say, "Oh, that doesn't have an influence over us," well, the moon has a fucking influence over us, and that's documented. Yeah. Who's to say Venus doing something won't have some sort of influence? You know, I don't think it's exactly causation, but it's correlation. As above, so below. And I just found it so interesting, like that you can observe something like that and find so many kind of like revelations for your own life and for society as well. You know, it's insane. I think it's so valuable, and I don't know. I think more people should definitely take a second look at it. I think
so. The age of Aquarius comes with it the revealing of old knowledge or knowledge that has been hidden. So I think it's obvious that astrology and numerology is becoming more.
It's taking an upswing.
Mainstream. Yeah. But it's interesting to note as well that when nations are founded, that was their birthday, their moment of coming to this reality as an official thing, just as like our birth time is. And based on that, countries and states and cities, they also have their own energetic imprint when they come into this world. What we're seeing right now in America is the Pluto return.
Yeah.
Which is usually bringing with it destruction, revelation, death, and the breakdown of old systems into a rebirth of something.
Rebirth, yeah.
And objectively, if you can see that coming, it moves very, very slowly. It takes hundreds of years and things.
250 usually.
250, right? Or 270.
Something like that.
Yeah.
It varies.
So you can go back and see, and like objectively, you look at what is happening in America right now. It kind of lines up.
It correlates with the other empires.
Yeah. Like
when they went through their rebirths or their destructions.
Yeah. So you see enough of these patterns and you're like, well, they can't all be coincidence, you know? Just another anecdote for people that may be rejecting this stuff. I have a guy that I talk to about this who's incredible, knows so much. And I'll have a call with him sometimes. It's not often, but he'll give me like a 6-month rundown of like what's going on with you right now. And the degree to which he is able to pinpoint specific happenings in my life, right? From me not saying anything.
It's crazy, yeah.
That you would literally be a fool to look at that and be like, he's just making it up.
Yeah.
You know, the specific social relationships or situations that I've been going through in that moment. It's like, okay, so maybe this is all just planned and it's a fucking matrix, you know? And, you know, it opens up to that kind of discussion.
Yeah.
Like, do we have a destiny and it's all kind of programmed into the same thing?
You have an episode with Michael, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, he kind of breaks it down well too, if anyone's interested in checking that one out.
Michael,
cool. Yeah. Holder of the Fire is his username on Twitter. We have an episode because he's into esoteric stuff, and he's just like, there's a caveat to all this, right? Like, you have the astrological imprint that gives you a certain energy that you would be better at or worse at different things. However, everything, your faith in God and your intuition will carry you higher than any of that. Like, keep in mind these things that you may learn, but never think something like, oh, this planet's moving through here, I'm going to have a bad time for this next few months. Because then it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy of, you know, there's things like in Chinese astrology, this is another thing. You can look up what year you were born will give you an animal sign, dog, cat, horse, dragon, ox, rat. There's a bunch of them in this 12-year cycle, I believe. And based on that, whatever sign you are, there is a particular year. For instance, we're now in the year of the dragon. And that has an energetic imprint. Some years will be good for you when it's your year in this 12-year cycle, or your enemy year. And in general, some people say, avoid starting new businesses, avoid getting married, having kids in this year if you can, because usually it's imprinted with an energy that is opposite to what you're inherently doing. And that's just one of the ways to be aware of these things, where if you're not aware, you go and do all these new things in an enemy year, and maybe they don't just work out. Like you feel like you're butting your head against a wall, or things just happen to you. Sometimes people go through these periods like, man, this year is just not my year. Like it's all going wrong. And they may feel that way. But once you understand these things, that, you know, maybe they're theories, and you just look back and think, when did I have a really bad year or a really good year? And
it lines up, yeah.
And it lines up, and it's like, whoa, there must be something to this. Like all these models of knowledge, they don't just happen because they don't work. They're not passed down for thousands of years because they don't work. If they didn't work, people are like, well, there's no point believing in this. What are we even doing looking at the stars if it has no benefit? But they've stuck around, so therefore there must be something to them.
Yeah, it'll also kind of allow you to have like just a calmer disposition about these events, right? If you just think, oh, the world is against me, always this year sucks. It's like maybe these bad things are still happening, but at least you're like, okay, maybe, you know, I can flow with it a bit easier.
And they're happening for your growth, right? If you're, there's another concept of the Saturn return. Saturn is the great teacher. And someone's Saturn return in their life, I believe happens 28, something like that.
27 to 29 type of thing.
Yeah. Cool. So we're born, and then Saturn takes 29 years to come back around. And because it's depicted as the great teacher, he will bring things into your life to teach you lessons. If you haven't learned the lessons that you were quote unquote meant to, and you reject things and you go against your intuition,
then you're going to get hit hard.
You're going to get hit hard, and you're going to have these lessons shoved in front of your face by these objectively pretty tough situations that happen to you, until you learn, until you change your ways, until you elevate your soul, until you activate your consciousness to a higher level. And just as you said, being aware of these functions and phenomena enables you to just go through life a bit more educated. Education about everything is going to...
It's beneficial.
...free you.
Yeah, yeah. And I always see it like... I think to myself, if a similar problem is showing up in my life, I see that as like the leading hand of fate. Like you have to lean into these problems to find an answer. And I see it as like, there's life and there's death. There's that duality, right? And life is inherently prospering and thriving. Even if there's these problems, I always also have this thing that I say is life giving life. Life will not give death. So if you are able to get through that problem, it's simply because your life is wanting to thrive more.
Awesome.
You know? So it's life is giving life. That's it. And no matter what's happening, it is still life trying to like persevere and thrive unless you're dead.
That's how I kind of look at issues and problems. I mean, not every day, but I try to keep that mentality is when I'm going through some rough shit, I'm like, well, this is refining me. You know, this pressure is just making me better at something, you know. Sometimes we don't want to, but you know, you lean into it, like you said, and you have a choice. You can sit and suffer and cry, and why is this happening to me? Or you can be like, damn, this sucks, but guess what? Like, I'm gonna grab this by the balls and I'm gonna make it my bitch type of thing.
Yeah. It's the concept of the phoenix. If we want to rebirth ourselves, some of it has to burn away and die. And what dies gives rise to new life. And we spread our wings as the phoenix, and you elevate and just like, okay. And you'll continually go through cycles like that throughout your life. And it will be harder the more you resist it. If you just resist that purification, that elevation through hard things and through struggles. And I don't like even referring to them as struggles. It's like referring to things as problems in my life. They're just situations, opportunities to learn, opportunities to get better. That is how you should view everything that happens, even like these once in a however long enemy years or whatever. It's like whatever happens to you, you can always step back. Well, what can I learn from this situation? Why is this situation repeatedly showing up for me? Or why is it just showing up for me? What can I learn from it? And that's always going to be a better perspective to have in any situation.
100%. Sets you up for success.
Yeah, 100%.
I wanted to pivot to you and Helios honey.
Helios honey,
Because
baby.
we know honey is the nectar of the gods. It is quite literally medicine.
Yes.
And funny anecdote, growing up, we had a neighbor that he just had a whole, I don't even know what it's called, the bees, the boxes of the bees.
Beehive?
Beehive, there you go.
Beehive, bee
He
box.
would, that was his thing. And raw honey next door, available to us growing up.
Nice.
And my dad every single morning would wake up and get a spoonful, eat it, give one to me, whatever. That man, I don't think I've ever seen my dad get sick in my entire
Smart man.
fucking life.
Yeah.
My dad was very not esoteric,
Based.
based. I guess let's call it based growing up. So
Yeah.
it's not new concepts, but stepped away from all that and then eventually came back to it, thankfully.
Beekeepers have longer lives.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, their lifespans are longer. Is that by accident? No, like not only the honey, but bees have this resonant frequency that is innately healing if you're around it a lot.
Yep.
And I've been doing a few classes, like learning my way around the hive and whatnot. And there's this strange, like calming sensation when you're around them. They see you as like a cone and they just go around you. Like they're doing their job. They all have their own roles. It's this little, it's God.
Fascinating.
Like it's actually a manifestation, it seems, of like God, because they all have this instinct to do what they were born to do. And they will not falter from that path.
Oh, worker bee. That's where the phrase comes from.
Like they have this one called the role called the graveyard bee. And this one was crazy. If a bee dies, which they obviously die often and they're born often, there are a certain group of bees that will grab that dead bee, 2 of them, and fly them to a graveyard like a half mile away.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah.
Well, what's
There's
your
a little
graveyard look like?
A little pile of dead bees.
Shut the fuck up.
It's like a ritual.
That's
for them.
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But honey itself, eternal shelf life, never goes bad. It's
That should tell you everything.
full of minerals.
It's just right there.
Yeah, highest frequency food on the planet.
Raw honey.
But raw honey. But even a step further than that, unheated, and also a lot of the plants that are being pollinated by these bees, unfortunately, are sprayed with pesticides like everything, specifically glyphosate. Yeah, the bees will travel a 5-mile radius to pollinate unless they don't have to.
So I was just gonna ask that. It's like, how do you control like where the bee picks up their pollen from? And I guess they have it mapped out to a radius.
So if, like, for instance, we had red mangrove honey. So that multitude of beehives specifically had red mangroves planted and grown around it so that they're not going to go anywhere. Like bees will work, but they're not going to work hard if they don't have to. They're just going back and forth. So yeah, right now it's sold out, but we're working on some new stuff and it's going to be great, man. How do you like yours?
Bro, amazing. I have the red mangrove. Yeah.
Nice. That one's great.
I had bought some raw honey from Whole Foods and they didn't have much selection. So I bought one that was like lavender based. The worst thing I think. It tasted like perfume.
Yeah.
It was like lavender, and honey is not, I don't know. It wasn't my thing.
Too much.
Keep that in mind.
Honey nutritionally as well is so powerful. It's an easily digested glucose, which is really good for the brain, and just bring it like, that's why I carry a jar with me wherever I go. You just need a little top up of energy. But what's fascinating is sometimes if you can't digest or you have trouble digesting a certain type of food, when you add honey to it, suddenly your body can digest it. And it's to do with the level of enzymes, some cofactor minerals that are just in honey and vitamins and things that and so do you, we put honey on everything. We're having raw steak.
I put that shit on everything.
Everything.
Phosphorus, manganese, like it's calcium. I mean, I'll bring a jar of honey to the gym. I'll put honey. I saw you doing this and I started to put honey in my water.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
Water. And
in a society where we're lacking like the right minerals and vitamins and shit, some people, they're not as focused on, supplementation as we are. Honey is just like the perfect, it's the perfect, just get a fucking jar of it. And,
anytime you can just get from nature your supplements and your minerals, that's obviously going to be better in its natural form. And honey is one of the things that, one, is delicious. 2, it goes with everything, can put it on anything that you're eating. And as well, medicinally, like it's used to treat so many different things. I think just as a function of it improves or fuels the body in every single way. Therefore, your body is going to be able to fight off anything that is dealing
Perform
with better.
I've had friends completely get rid of their acne with honey masks
Topically? Oh, shit.
all over their face at night. Within a couple weeks, zero acne.
Wow.
Yeah. Any cut that you have, any redness, soreness, like honey straight on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had stings or bites or just inflammation or whatever. You put honey on it topically, pain stops, itching stops within 10 minutes. Like it's actually crazy.
It's so nutrient dense, probably
Yeah.
why, you know.
It's in the Bible. Milk and honey is like divine foods forever.
The land of milk and honey.
Yeah, there we go.
That's where it comes from.
Yeah, speaking, can I actually have
Yeah, sure. Go for
the
it.
dollop?
Dollop.
This is a local one.
What's that one called?
Yours. No idea.
No, well, we don't have competitors around here.
It's good though.
You were mentioning the lifespan of beekeepers. I was reading up on that. It's some people attribute it to the frequency that the bees let out
With
the
the
buzzing.
buzzing.
Yeah, it's ridiculously calming. I've heard of people that they beekeep like every single day, and maybe every now and then you get stung. And then they go on vacation and they get sick from a lack of the bee stings.
What?
Yeah, like that bee sting is like a little dose of antibiotic. I mean, not only honey. If you look at the hive, they have propolis, which used to be like an ancient antibiotics, like the OG, like penicillin.
Royal jelly.
Yeah,
Testosterone booster.
royal jelly is crazy. Like the reason I was saying also it feels like very divine in the beehive is like, let's say the queen bee dies. Like the way a bee becomes a queen is when the larva. Okay, so every bee as a larva is consuming exclusively royal jelly, and then at a certain point they start eating honey. Except the queen. The queen eats honey her entire life. That's why she gets so big.
Royal jelly? Or
Yes, royal jelly.
honey? Yeah, royal jelly the whole time.
Yeah. So when a queen bee dies, it's pretty interesting that the bees, like, imagine if that was empire and the populace had the choice to become the king. They would do whatever they could to become the king. But the bees will like not consume the royal jelly and they're just plant and grow this new queen. Which I thought it was pretty crazy.
That's crazy.
Like, they
dude.
could eat the royal jelly, but they're like, no. We need this
They
one
leave it for the
task.
queen.
Exactly, yeah.
Wow.
Even when the queen dies, it's like, yeah.
They're such fascinating little
It's
creatures.
amazing. It's amazing.
It really is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, there's bee sting therapy where some people with pain
Yeah.
or inflammation in the body
Oh, I've heard
will
of that.
intentionally get stung in a certain area. And sometimes if you get stung by a bee and it's like you're not swatting it or whatever, it's just, boom, you got a bee sting. There is an argument to say that that bee felt something within you that could benefit from the bee sting and the venom inside you and it being like a cleansing experience. So next time, because think about this, a bee will die if it stings you. It gets ripped apart.
Yeah.
Like it's,
Their guts come out.
why would they do that if you're not attacking the hive, you're not attacking it? Like it doesn't really make sense. So I believe it makes sense to me that they're sensing something in you that is off base, like out of whack, and that the intelligence of the bee energy
Their
feels
intuition.
that their intuition, their version of whatever directs the bee, the hive mind, is seeing where there's something unnatural or something going on inside you, but then it might help with the bee sting, and then it goes. It's not conscious of the bee, of course, so
Right.
it stings you. So be grateful because a bee has given up its life for you. I think it's so amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Or you sat on it wrong, you know.
That
These things
could
happen
also
as
be.
well.
Yeah.
They say something similar about cats and their purrs. Like a cat will come around and purr if they sense something, you know.
I tweeted about this. Is the most healing thing you can have is if they put a cat on every hospital bed and just like I just can't like that purring
Yeah.
is like this resonant energy. Just some people think cats are divine beings that have come from a
Well, it's
different
culture-
world.
culturally,
Pharaohs used to
yeah.
have 'em.
Pharaohs used to have them. They're in the hieroglyphics. If you meditate, cats will come meditate with you. Like they're not like doing this or whatever, but
They're attuned to
They're
something.
wearing
they're
Yes.
attuned to something. They'll come and chill and like they see spirits, they see energy. They're very tapped in. So it's not the same as just like, oh, that's a little cat. You know, it's just an animal. Like there's something about it, which I think is really cool.
I was watching a Netflix documentary about them. I don't know why, because
Cats or dogs?
Cats.
Cat lady.
And they were talking about how we're actually like 20 years behind in studies worth of understanding cats rather than dogs. So we
haven't tested them.
Right. We just haven't given a fuck about cats, and then just like everything's about dogs.
Yeah.
And we're still so like primitive, I guess, to really understanding, the psyche of a cat or what, their functions and all this shit. So I probably have a lot to discover there.
Bit of a pivot. So there was a cat experiment done. I think it was Edinger's cats. And he had 2 groups of cats. And for several years, he fed one group of cats. So the same food. One was cooked, one was raw. And over time, he saw that the cats that were eating the raw food stayed healthy. Their coats were nice. They were energetic, playful, even into their old age. The cats that were fed exclusively cooked food were getting sick, getting these diseases, run down, hair falling out over time. And this was like I think it's Edinger's cat, something like that. You can go read the study, and super, super interesting because this is objectively like you have your control group and then comparison. It's obviously something that I've talked a lot about recently is discovering raw foods in general.
This is a great pivot because that was my next right.
I figured, yeah. It felt right.
Yeah.
So what's happening there? He had this theory that raw food was more nutritious and has better digestibility and is more nutrient dense than cooked food. And what's the mechanism there? Well, if you think about if you have a potato, you can put it in the ground, more potatoes will grow. If you have a potato, you cook it in whichever way, then you put it in the ground, it's going to break down and get moldy and, be absorbed into the soil. It's 2 different things. One has life force within it, some energy that is still within that potato. They get the shoots that just pop out of them like it's living. And then cooked food, it's dead. The temperature has raised the chemical structure of the food, the potato, whatever it is, to a point where, one, it's destroying a lot of the nutrients inside it. The water-soluble vitamins the water disappears, steams out, gets rid of those. The enzymes within it that help you digest things and help all your cells do things, they break down under heat. All of that happens in the cooking process. And then also the resonant chi life force, because it's dead, has been cooked out and burnt. Like you look at something that's burnt, eventually it gets to a charcoal. It's like it's waste. It's nothing.
You're
it's
eating
smoke.
stuff. Yeah.
It's dead. So you can take that same perspective of, okay, I'm cooking it a little bit or I'm cooking it mostly. So you're getting rid of most of the nutrients, most of the life force, most of anything that was contained within that food. Then you give it to the cats. One is cooked, less water-soluble vitamins, less enzymes, it's heavier in the stomach, all of these things, it's dead food. Give it to cats. They can no longer renew themselves and repair themselves. They don't have the energy to do anything. They're not lively. They're not energetic. But the raw foods all still have that within them. So from my investigation over the last couple of years, and again, testing my own experiments on myself.
Soul Lab.
Yeah. The best experiments you can do is within yourself because you know what you're doing and you can feel intuitively, like innately, what I feel better or worse doing this. Like that's the most scientific thing you can do. So all of this, like Edinger's cats, testing my own things, raw foods seem to be across the board more nutritious, make me feel better, make me feel more energetic, look healthier, feel stronger, digest better compared to cooked foods. And I've gone through cooked foods and I've gone for years and years and years. That's the standard. Still having raw fruits and things, like I wasn't cooking my fruits for the most part. There are some things that some argue, like some vegetables should be cooked, whatever else. But in general, animal foods, I'm now eating pretty much totally raw across the board.
I've
raw
seen
eggs.
you eat the meats.
Yeah, I can attest.
We had
the
it
other day.
yeah.
I had,
So what did your experience
I had
with that?
raw ribeye, and I can.
First time?
I had like the tartar often, but never just
What's
straight
the
up
difference?
raw.
Isn't it the same?
It's just like seasoned, I guess, and different. I'm not sure if there's really much of a difference. They're both raw, but overall, I mean, I had a whole steak. If I would have had a whole cooked steak, I would have been, at least felt heavier, right? I felt like I could eat more. No, I didn't feel like I got any more. I was satiated, but the energy was fully there. I was like present, still lean. That it wasn't bloated at all. It was great. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna be doing that.
But then a lot of people would argue, well, it's the stomach of a cat, right? The stomach of a human is different. There's bacteria that can harm. If the animal maybe was sick or, maybe it got dirty in the process.
I think the quality of the meat you're getting is probably going to, you don't want to eat some tortured chicken's raw eggs either. Or some, you want to get grass-fed meat, pasture-raised
organic
eggs, all organic. This goes across the board too, because pesticides on fruit are sprayed and glyphosate, things like that can ruin the gut lining, and then you don't absorb nutrients properly, and that has a whole other host of downstream effects. So
that's kind of separate though to the raw versus cooked, because of course it goes without saying, get the best quality. You're not going to eat a disgusting gross bit of fruit, so you wouldn't eat gross like pesticide and hormones and vaccines in your beef, of course.
The conventional shit that you would pick up in the market, let's say, right?
Yeah, but I've also eaten like just the Whole Foods ground beef, totally fine. No, like it's not like I'm only eating farm fresh, exact, the best of the best. Like it's just my working model of bacteria and things. Like if it's not visibly moldy, you can't see like it's not anything like that, then you're good. Whole Foods isn't, for the most part, like importing this low quality shit. If I'm not buying the cheap.
It's also like designing a resilient body that could, tiny bit of bacteria isn't going to bring you down. You want to overall optimize your lifestyle so that you are like a vital human that could eat like a vital human eats. You don't want to shove, maybe you do, but I'm not sure, like shove raw beef into some like soy boy eating cereal and Monster Energy all day. Like it's probably.
I would do that.
You would do it.
It would help him, It's going to be better.
Yeah. Open his eyes a bit.
Raw dairy is really the easiest one for people to wrap their head around.
Yeah.
Is yes, there is bacteria in raw milk, but the bacteria is what helps you digest. People don't realize we eat the food, but then the bacteria in our gut digest it. They are transforming that from the food into nutrients that they're eating and then excreting, and then we eat their excrement. That is like the whole purpose of the healthy gut microbiome. If you don't have the right organisms in there that come with food, so the organisms that digest particular foods are already in that food if you don't cook it, like raw milk. The raw milk bacteria that's in there helps us to digest that raw milk. And that's why people that are lactose intolerant can drink raw milk, because now they have the bacteria that populates, and kefir is good for that.
I guess that's the same concept behind, for example, when you go to Mexico, don't drink the water in Mexico, right? But the Mexicans drink the water and they're fine.
Yeah.
Because they already have that culture, right?
Yeah.
Alive and thriving in their stomachs. And then, a foreigner wouldn't, because it's a whole different ballpark.
Yeah. It's the pasteurization of the milk that's boiling away all those enzymes.
Nutrients, yeah.
So, I mean,
enzymes, nutrients, and bacteria all killed. And
on top of that, I'm sure the cows aren't being treated the best. If you're just straight up milking a grass-fed cow, I mean, how is that a bad thing? We've been doing that forever.
It's the elixir of life, truly.
People do raw milk fasts. By the way, if you add some Helios honey to it, delicious.
I know. You saw my video on it.
Yeah, yes, sir.
I did a video the other day where I added a few raw eggs, raw milk, men milk, and Helios honey and some Celtic sea salt, and that's the Nature's Protein Shake, just health bomb. Boom.
Yeah. And the thing is like you'll give that to someone to try, like, and be like, God, this is the yummiest thing I've ever tasted. It smokes delicious. Any protein smoothie, milkshake, BS. And that's almost like the most quick way to red pill someone. Man, okay, raw milk is good. I'm on board because it's so yummy.
I've actually done it where I have them try it and then I tell them like what's in it. And they're like, there's no way out now. I mean, just said how good it was.
It's the same fucking ingredients used to bake a cake. Like, how is this not, you know what I mean? Like, what are you missing, flour?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so much. It's creamier. It's denser. It just tastes. It tastes better, and you feel. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel stronger. Like when I go to the gym and shit, I just feel like I'm more.
It's anabolic.
The
most anabolic food you can have. Like I was saying to Homer the other day that if I want to bulk up, I'll just add 2 liters of raw milk a day. I'll do what I'm doing. Add 2 liters of milk as well. Like first thing when I wake up, it's a liquid food. So that's the other thing with digestion. Liquids. The closer you can get a food to liquid form through chewing and mixing the saliva, even if it was a solid food before, and then swallowing, the better you're going to digest it. That's the whole point of chewing. And most people aren't chewing. So they think, I'm eating a pound of chicken breast, but it's just, and then they swallow. You're not absorbing a pound of chicken breast. So you think you're getting X amount of protein. And that's the whole ideology of like macros and things, which, you know, we
your
can
mouth
get into.
is the first stomach.
Mouth is the first stomach. The saliva encodes the food with information, with little markers that tell your body like what actual food it is. So if you're not mixing saliva throughout, even raw milk, you should chew. You should chew in order to promote the flow of saliva, to mix it throughout the milk with each mouthful and then swallow.
Well, how do you chew milk?
There's people that chew water.
Well, you just
like
tried
switch
that.
it, like switch it type of thing.
Well, you just chew.
Okay.
There's no like solid force
It's
to
the
go.
action of it.
The action
I see what you're
is
saying.
gonna
I see what you're saying.
increase the level of peristalsis of the
I see what you're
salivary
saying.
ducts.
Uh-huh.
And then, I mean, even doing this now, you can feel, saliva's kind of pumping into my mouth. Yeah. And then, that raw milk, it's like giga anabolic when you do that.
I'm gonna start doing that.
That's another kind of black pill on, mainstream gum, like just fake gum with assorted flavors and all this crap. Some master
Shout out
gum,
Greco gum.
some Greco gum.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I used to chew, awful gum, and I would always get like a stomach ache. And I was like, why is this happening? It's because not only are you signaling to your body that, you might digest something soon, but it's artificial flavoring.
Dude, that
all this
fake
awful
sugar
things.
in
It's
that.
literally
It's
plastic.
terrible.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
it's literally
Plastic.
a plastic derivative that forms the gum base. If you go look at the ingredients, there's like, they call it something else, but then you research it. It's like literally like a bit of rubber tire chemical that they've repackaged and added some other synthetic fake things to. And then people just chewing on that all day.
As
It's
opposed
insane.
to Greco gum, that's just
It
tree
really
mass.
shows the level of resiliency that this machine has. That we are pumped with so much fucking bullshit, and somehow like we're still managing to move.
we're an adaptive
Like-
species.
Yeah, well, I mean, yes, on one perspective, but also everyone's dropping dead of cancer.
Well, no.
Disease,
Correct.
It's like, okay, well,
Correct.
how
But I'm saying
resilient is
that we can even make it that long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
get
yeah.
sick down the line, but
Yeah.
again, you beat me to it. I was gonna ask you about. You've been very vocal recently about cancer, which is a delicate topic for a lot of people. Obviously, so
Yeah.
But you've had some different takes on the disease in general. How did that come about?
So it kind of, I'll mention the guy that, his book really inspired this whole rabbit hole. It's Ogenus von der Planets. He wrote a book called We Want to Live, where he talks about what he calls the primal diet, which is raw foods. And he explains his philosophy and the life that led him to that perspective. He had horrible diseases throughout his whole life from a very young age, terrible pain, autism, like all of these things, which cancers of various kinds that the medical system couldn't treat, and they didn't help him. They didn't give him any release from the pain. They didn't like make the cancers go away or anything. It was just pumping him full of chemicals, random experimental medications. He tried raw vegan diets. He tried all these other things, cooked foods of various kinds. And it got so bad that after several days of wandering the desert, because he was so in pain from the various illnesses that he had, he was like, all right, I'm done. I'm going to go out into the wilderness. I'm just going to die somewhere. And as he had his like little base that he was staying at, one night when he was close to like really hadn't eaten anything in days and days and days, he came across a group of coyotes. And the coyotes brought a dead rabbit, like a really freshly killed rabbit, and dropped it at his feet. And he thought, okay, well, I want to die. Raw meat is poisonous and full of bacteria and pathogens. I'll just eat this. That's why they've brought this thing to me. And I'll eat the rabbit and then I'll just die and fall asleep. So he consumes about 4 pounds of, they're solid little animals out in the desert there, the rabbit. And then he crawls into his whatever hole shelter he had made and falls asleep. And he's like, all right, I'm going to die here. And he wakes up in the morning.
Healthy as fuck.
And he's felt better. He's felt better than he has in years.
That's
and he was
crazy.
like, what's happening? they told me raw meat would kill me. I've eaten this random rabbit from out in the woods, but I feel better than I have in years. And so in that moment, he's like, well, okay, there's something to this raw meat thing. He started eating rattlesnakes and other things, like more rabbits that he found out in the wilderness there, and got better and better from all this raw meat that he was eating.
Oh, that's really raw. That's like right out there.
That's
Yeah.
fresh off the
fresh
Well,
kill.
that's the fresh is the best, obviously.
Yeah.
The closer to the kill you can get, even freezing some meats can destroy some of the enzymes within it. So ideally you get it as fresh as possible. But that experience, whether you believe that happened or not, that's what he wrote about. And that's what he said happened. And then that led to him really dedicating his life to, one, pushing out this new perspective of, and maybe other people have also made those observations, but this is how I first came about it. And this book, We Want to Live, it talks about a lot of things. It talks about the raw meat, talks about bacteria, medications in the body, modern medicine in general, cancers. And so he talks about how raw meat is healing, how the body needs raw fats in order to detoxify things. And he also talks about how cancer, before I say this stuff, I just want to preface it by saying that my exploration into this topic is to try to elevate my understanding in order to communicate the truth and try to find the truth in order to help people that have cancer. Because currently, the health system right now is not helping people with cancer. They may do chemo and get worse because it's just poisoning the body.
Yeah.
But our cancer rates are not going down. If they were going down, obviously we've solved it and we understand everything.
Going up, yeah.
So you have to look at other perspectives and other points of view, regardless of whether they trigger you and you're upset that maybe a close family member passed away with cancer and you didn't know the information before. I understand how that can be upsetting. However, you have to investigate these things and not just discount. You can't question the doctors. You can't question the guys that are making billions of your chemotherapy, cancer drugs,
Absolutely.
and the treatments that objectively aren't solving cancer. So for me, to look at this new perspective of cancer, which is your body in general and all disease is the result of either an accumulation of toxins or a lack of nutrients, minerals being the wrong way, heavy metals being high or low or whatever it is. There's some imbalance which throws off the normal human pesticides.
Not
enough sun, chemicals, like all these things, which if you have all the things in the right amounts and the nutrients, your body understands how to return to a level of homeostasis and energy and health. But if you never put in the right things and you're always putting in garbage, chemicals from laundry detergent is a huge, huge one that is impacting millions of people around the world right now because of what we're just putting in our clothes, wearing the clothes, washing in bed sheets, breathing it in, all of that, all of the environment, the things we spray on ourselves, the chemicals, the paints, everything, the toxins, the car exhaust, like rubber, plastic, all of this shit.
Wi-Fi, EMF.
Yeah, they particularly the body builds up these toxins if you're not healthy and if you're not sweating every day, you're not getting into natural bodies of water, you're not, getting in the sun, all these things which allow your body to get rid of garbage and purge. It becomes so backed up that eventually, in order to stop these toxins from roaming around the body and causing damage, your body kind of accumulates them in certain areas depending on certain things. And that becomes a cancerous growth. What we call cancer, what we say is this uncontrollable, random genetic mutation of your own cells, which just grow and grow and grow and grow. That doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And that, to me, it makes sense that this buildup of toxins and unhealthy living and low nutrients from cooked diets and trash diets, Chick-fil-A, whatever, and all the other increasing amounts of toxins that we have in our day-to-day lives, that to me makes more sense because cancer rates are increasing along with those other things. And that's the perspective that I've kind of delved into and tried to share. And obviously I'm not pretending that I have all the answers, but we can't look at something that's not working and go, yep, let's continue going down that path because, people are just making billions of dollars off it. Yeah. The other thing to think about is something has caused this cancer, this accumulation of whatever, to add chemotherapy drugs on top of that, now your body has to deal with whatever it was dealing with before
And fight that off.
and process all the chemicals that
Radiation. Bomb.
antibiotics is the same. Now you've just nuked your gut bacteria, so you can't absorb and break down the food that you do eat. So now you have less nutrients in order to repair and rebuild. So the current model of pharmaceutical-based treatment for health is totally wrong, in my opinion. And this is my opinion, and I'm going to say it, and I don't really care if you think
100%.
it's wrong or bad to question things. Like, question everything, question what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But from what I've read, from what I've seen, go back 200 years, probably a few more than that, before pasteurization was a thing, bacteria, like the mainstream medicine was that model of keep the body clean. If you eat too much, you can get a buildup of waste, and then the bacteria within you needs to break that up because you're not efficiently getting rid of it. Then you get sick because the waste products of the bacteria are too much for your body to get rid of. That's what all acne is. It's some poison that's come into your body through some way, coming out of the skin, and your body having a reaction to it because you keep on putting it in through the things you eat, through the medications that you have, all of these things which contribute. And to me, it just resonates a lot better as a model of health. And Ogenus talks about having raw foods because they're high in enzymes, raw fats and cholesterol being one of the body's greatest protection mechanisms of getting rid of garbage out of the body. If you don't have those, then the body just eventually depletes itself and gets into the state of weakness and disease in various parts. And then you add chemotherapy on top of that, and then your body just and dies. And people are like, oh, they died of cancer.
Yeah.
And I'm not diminishing people that are dying of cancer, but do they die of cancer, or do they die of cancer? They didn't change their lifestyle whatsoever because the doctor doesn't ask those things. It just says, you've got this. It's a random genetic thing. There's nothing we can do. You have 3 months to live.
Yeah.
Like, that is pathetic.
Yeah.
That there's no intellectual curiosity. There are great doctors out there. There are people that want to find the truth, and a lot of them are just educated wrong. That's all in my opinion. However, I want to promote this other version, which has scientific studies behind it in a lot of different ways. They're just not talked about in the mainstream. And it was the mainstream medicine opinion before this particular ideology came in. And so that links to the raw foods. And then I feel better having raw foods, and there's less things wrong in my body. And I share it with other people that I meet, and they go, yeah, this feels great. And my digestion's better. My energy levels are higher. And ideally, that kind of knowledge, like, let's test it. Let's run some actual evidence-based tests and see if people with cancer respond better to, like, the food. The food changes. We're not giving them Ensure nutrition shakes under blue light in a hospital and then injecting them with shit. It's insane.
There has to be someone out there testing this shit out. Like, there's no way that, like, there's other like-minded individuals, you know what I mean, that have the resources and are more in that industry.
Yeah. And even to like zoom out and look at it like an equation, because I have like little knowledge, but I do whenever I think of cancer or I try to approach the topic, like, it's a cell mutation, right? So what else is mutated currently? Our nutrition, the way we live, everything that makes us human and healthy is being mutated in real time.
What's causing the
and
mutation?
Cancer rises are rising. So it's like, I mean, if you just live naturally and you don't even like entertain the idea that the people that are profiting off of your illness have the answer, then the power is within you. You have the answers, and you're able to kind of go about your life healing your own self and not even having to worry about this. Like, I'll go down as a case study for, I doubt I'll have cancer, right? Like, because we're living real, we're living harmoniously.
And there's another level of this, which is sometimes even harder to grasp, is that if people don't diagnose a cancer, sometimes they don't know that it happens. They don't have any symptoms. And as that mechanism, if we take it as, okay, it's accumulating things here for whatever reason, maybe like all this time you're sitting in a chair and you kind of lean to the right. And now that area is not getting any blood or lymph movement or anything for years and years and years. And so something accumulates there. Like, maybe that's the mechanism, things like that. Like, once you have that understanding of things, it all changes for the better. Like, your personal responsibility improves, and it just seems for me to be a better model to at least experiment and look into.
I mean, that's the basis of science, right? Like anyone that discredits questioning current science does not believe in science at all, because the whole basis of it is to disprove, to test, to, you know. So, I mean, I think it's just a touchy subject for many people for obvious reasons. But if you don't question, then how do you move on from the status quo?
Yeah, I'm sure we've had people affected by cancer.
Yeah, I have my grandfather.
My friend's mom recently, I gave her the whole rundown of my schizo take. But to tie it back to the opening of the podcast, sunscreen causes cancer.
Well, they just had a huge recall across I don't know how many major brands.
Yeah. And think about it. It makes sense if you're spraying this chemical slop
and then you're cooking it with the sun on top.
Heating it on top. And then it just kind of, that's why people sunburn as well. It's like these unstable chemicals that are being heated up in the sun, soaking into your skin. Your skin's
absorbed by your bloodstream.
Get this out of it into your bloodstream.
While eating rancid oils that are changing the chemistry of your blood, that's going to react differently to the sun. It's all just a concoction for skin cancer.
Lack of sunlight is all cause for all cancers. It increases if you're not getting sunlight. Blue light causes cancer more so than this. Well, blue light is a risk factor for cancer, because it's like it's a blue light, but then you're also not getting sunlight usually. And so there could be several mechanisms without lack of vitamin D. Your circadian rhythm is off. You're not getting the blood flow. The sunlight charges the electrostatic potential, which moves your blood around. So if you're not getting that from the sun and it's only blue light, you're kind of just like sluggish everywhere, and then you accumulate more toxins and your body can't get rid of it. So there's like all these things which kind of add up and to this base model of health, and like disease being an accumulation of garbage that just makes so much more sense in my many years of reading about this stuff now.
Oh, I mean, it makes total sense, man. And it's the reason why, you know, I love to have you guys on, because it's important that we've become so far removed from the basics that make us human, from humanity itself. And you guys are great reminders to return to that holistic, you know, it's not rocket science. Move and sweat.
It's so simple.
Eat your nutrients and don't eat trash. Get sun. End of list.
Like it's not. It's so easy.
You know? Yeah. But thank you, gentlemen, for joining me here today. Yeah. Got an amazing time.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you guys for doing what you do.
Yeah, and this philosophy is kind of wrapped up in I believe it's called the Soul Way.
And that's
Oh yes, thanks for bringing that up. This is my new book, The Soul Way. This is an accumulation of really years of writing, and it's how I view the world. And it is intended to give you the mental tools, the philosophical tools, spiritual tools, and perspectives in how to better succeed in life. There's elements of stoicism, everything that I've really learned that I think would be the most helpful to you. So check it out on Amazon.
Where can the folks find you? Your plugs, your Twitter, your...
SolBrah on everything. IG is @realsolbrah, solbrah.com.
Amazing.
Homer Helios everywhere. That's it.
The honey plug, man.
Helios honey as well. Yeah, you can find that in the bio.
You're sold out right now.
Sold out.
Yeah, but you know, keep...
When's the restock?
Looking maybe like maximum 3 months, just because we're going to build out a new product as well.
Okay,
cool. We'll be posting about that soon.
All right.
Yeah.
Excited.
Beautiful.
We'll be purchasing.
Let's go.
Thank you guys for tuning in. This is all the time we got for today. Have yourselves a good day. And as always, no se metan con nadie para que nadie se los meta. Have a good one. That's a wrap.